So two very important bills were just passed by the House and the Senate and are being signed by President Biden. These two bills, one of which is keeping the federal government open. The second one is increasing Social Security benefits. There's some good news behind that, but there's also some bad news. I'm also going to get to a $1,400 stimulus check that's going to go out to more than 1 million people. I want to address where all this is coming from. But again, keep in mind, we are coming to the end of 2024. We have 10 days left. Okay, 10 days until January 1st. We only have a little bit over a month before, actually less than a month, before Donald Trump steps in as our next president. This is why some of these things are happening so quickly, but this is also why some money is going out just as fast. So I'm going to break all this down in just a moment, but all I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now let's begin. So yes, it is true. A bill for Social Security just passed. It's going to provide an increase to about 3 million people. A bill that's going to provide additional funding to the U.S. government has just passed. This is going to keep federal employees employed. This is going to keep parks open. This is providing money for FEMA, right? There's a lot of stuff here. I'll explain a little bit more of that in just a moment. And the third thing, $1,400 stimulus checks. Yeah, the IRS just announced yesterday that they are sending out more than 1 million stimulus checks. Okay, 1 million stimulus checks to the tune of $1,400 because people did not actually get this money when they should have back during the pandemic. So again, I'm going to address that in a moment. Let's get right down to it. So the Senate has passed the Social Security Fairness Act. This is good news. This means about 2.8 million people are going to receive additional benefits, right? Larger increases for this next year. That's really good. But there's a little bit of a problem here, okay? This doesn't go for every single person, right? Not every single person is going to get this. It says right here, the U.S. Senate passed a bipartisan bill early Saturday to increase Social Security benefits for close to 3 million federal, state, and local public sector workers. This includes firemen, policemen, teachers, postal workers, right? They're all going to get increases. It says in the roll call vote, 76 senators voted in favor of the bill, 20 senators voted against it. Now, it says if the legislation is signed into law by President Joe Biden, which it will be, it would apply to all benefits payable after December 2023. So actually, this means a lot of these people are going to get a back payment. That's even better. So it's not just, I was thinking January 2025, but no, January 2024, you will start receiving bigger benefits. Okay. Now, I'm going to get to some of the issues there in a moment, but I want to talk about this. The government shutdown has been averted after the Senate passed a bipartisan bill to stop for the stopgap funding. Okay, this is actually pretty big. And here was the issue. Yesterday I talked about this a little bit. Talked about how if the government shuts down, right, millions of federal employees stop going to work. Only those that are deemed essential and those necessary will actually go to work. Okay, everyone else stay at home, right? You can eventually collect unemployment. But the interesting thing about this bill was they were discussing giving raises to members of Congress. While members of Congress were struggling to get anything done over the past year, they were potentially going to get a $6,000 per year raise. Yeah, that's what they're going to get. $6,000. While the American people are out here struggling. And Congress was going to get a $6,000 raise. Yeah, they shot that one down. That one didn't get through. Look at this. It says that U.S. Senate has approved a bipartisan federal funding package, sending the House passed legislation to President Joe Biden's desk. It says the bill funds federal agencies at current levels for the next 3 months. This is going to go on until, I believe, March 14th. I believe that's when this whole thing we'll have to renegotiate this. But the good news is, at least it gives the government enough funding to get them through December, get them through the holidays, get them through January, which means get them past the inauguration date, okay, of January 20th. Gets them all the way through February, right? Gives them a little bit of time to negotiate, and then hopefully they'll be on, kind of the same team come March. But again, we'll see. Goes on to say, the vote capped off several days of chaos during which House Speaker Mike Johnson tried and failed to meet the demands of President-elect Donald Trump. Now, some of the things that were in here, some of the winners, there's some losers here. Some of the winners in this bill, first off, just the federal employees. They don't have to take any days off. So that's good news there. They can keep getting paid. As far as our military personnel, their checks are still going to keep coming. Because this is the issue. If we were to shut down, the federal government wouldn't send checks to our military personnel. But yet they are deemed essential and necessary, so they would have to be there. It's a little bit troubling. Farmers are going to be one of the winners here. The Farm Bill from 2018, that gets a 1-year extension. There's also $10 billion that's going to go into the economic assistance for farmers. That's really good, especially with the weather that we've been having recently. Disaster aid and FEMA. $100 billion went into disaster aid. This is going to help with Hurricanes Milton, Hurricanes Helene, fires that we've seen, right, in Oregon, Washington, even California, right? A lot of fires this summer. FEMA is getting $30 billion, okay? FEMA was saying that they were running out of money. Well, now they got some money. So that bill has just been passed. That's good news there. And we'll get into more of that in a moment. Later on this week, I'll talk a little bit more about what's in that bill and what isn't in that bill. What isn't in that bill is probably bigger, because that went from a 1,500-page bill to, I think, like a 140-page bill. The majority of the 1,500 pages, nobody would have ever read. All right? That's what's troubling there. Now, let's get to this. The U.S. Senate approves Social Security change despite fiscal concerns. Now, what are the fiscal concerns? Well, that's what we need to get to, because a lot of people are saying that this has been something we've screwed over millions of people over the past 50, 40 years, whatever it's been. And now we finally have fixed it. Let me read this to you. It said the bill will overturn a decades-old change to the program that had been made to limit federal benefits to some higher-earning workers with pensions. Over time, growing numbers of municipal employees such as firefighters and postal workers also saw their payments capped. Most Americans do not participate in pension plans, which pay a defined benefit and instead are dependent on what money they can save and Social Security. Just 1 in 10 U.S. private sector workers have pension plans, according to the Labor Department. It says the new provision impacts about 3% of Social Security beneficiaries, totaling a little more than 2.5 million Americans, and the workers and retirees affected by these provisions are key constituencies for lawmakers, and their powerful advocacy groups have pushed for a legislative fix. Okay, they've done that. Now, the problem is, this is going to increase the price tag for Social Security by $196 billion over 10 years. This is going to speed up the insolvency date, which means it might not be in 10 years in 2034. Maybe it's in 2033 or possibly 2032. That's the concern. And again, I bring this up because this bill passed. Everyone's excited that yes, we have an increase to Social Security, but again, it only impacts about 2.8 million people. The other good thing about this, though, is Congress is now looking at the issues that have been made and the changes that were made to Social Security, 40 to 50 years ago, and they're coming out and saying, you know what, that's something we need to address. We need to fix that because that's not right. You know what else they're saying isn't right? Well, the way we calculate the cost of living adjustment, okay, we calculate it based off of like the urban wages and workers, whatever. Okay, we base it off of the entire CPI, as opposed to very specific expenses that just the elderly are paying for. That's why CPI-E is what they're discussing. Okay, so that's one change. Changing the Social Security tax cap is another one. It's another big one. Eliminating income taxes on Social Security benefits. That's another change they're discussing. Again, they're saying we screwed up, decades ago, and now we fixed it. Well, let's see what the next fix is. All right. So that's what's happening as far as Social Security. Now, let's get to the next big piece of information. Here it is. The IRS is sending up to $1,400 to 1 million people. Okay? This is simply because, and they're calling these their special payments. The reason why this money is going out right now is because if this doesn't go out before the new administration steps in, this money will likely never be paid out. So the Biden administration is urging the IRS to get this money out the door as quickly as possible before it's too late. Now, let me read a little bit of this article right here. It says right here, the IRS said Friday it is sending a total of $2.4 billion in special payments to 1 million people. Part of an effort to ensure that Americans who didn't receive all their federal stimulus checks during the pandemic will get the money in their bank accounts. Says the payments will vary by person with a maximum amount of $1,400 per recipient. Says to minimize headaches and get this money to eligible taxpayers while making these payments automatic, meaning these people will not be required to go through the extensive process of filing an amended return to receive it. Okay, so this money is going to be dispersed here very soon. I want to read you this last piece of information. It says who will get the payment from the IRS. It says the tax agency said it's dispersing the funds after reviewing internal data that showed many people had filed tax returns but yet didn't claim what is known as the recovery rebate credit in 2021. That credit was designed for people who didn't get all or some of the stimulus checks when they were issued during the pandemic. Lawmakers authorized 3 stimulus payments with 2 sent in 2020 and a third in 2021. The one in 2021, in 2020 was $1,200 and $600, and in 2021, President Biden passed the $1,400 because he said every single American would receive $2,000 under a Democratic presidency. Guess what? Donald Trump, before he left office, he passed $600, meaning Democrats only needed the other $1,400 to make the $2,000. So again, Biden math, but at least you get something. So that's what we know at this time. About 1 million people are going to get an additional up to $1,400. So that's good news there. Bad news is, for President-elect Donald Trump and the Trump administration, they are going to send out about another $2.4 billion within the next month. So we'll see what happens moving forward. But the good news is a bill for Social Security has been passed and the U.S. government is still open. So if you guys have any questions regarding any of these stories, please ask your questions down in the comment section below. But that is what we know as of today. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.